Welcome, everybody, to the show. We've got a lot to talk about. I've got some very strong opinions as to what's going to happen over the course of the next month and the opportunity it's going to give all of us. We're going to be focusing specifically on crypto and Bitcoin. And, I'll cut right to the chase. I believe it's setting up for a buying opportunity. I don't believe that the end is here or that we're descending into the winter, right? But I want to lay out the opportunity as I see it. It's a little different than some of the things I've said in the past. If you watched my last video, I titled Potential Blow Off Top Incoming, but we've got this war to process. And believe it or not, war is always good in the long run for Wall Street. Initially, there's the shock to absorb, but then in the coming days, the market loves to rally. Why? Because Congress gets together and allocates some spending to the operation, and that stimulates the economy, and spending is good for stocks. Not necessarily good for the dollar in the long scheme of things, but we're going to break it down. I'm going to bring in my man, my special guest today, Mark. Mark, how are you doing?
Good, Josh. Thanks for having me here. Great to be on the show.
Now, Mark, you have done something pretty incredible, and it's I'm gonna call it a little bit of a Josh move. Okay,
It was a Josh move. It was completely inspired by you, and I learned off you from the last time, and I just pulled the trigger this time.
I love that because I also learn off of you, Mark, a ton, and I appreciate your presence on the show and in the Stocks with Josh Discord. But let's talk about what Mark did. He sold all his bags. He cashed out and he let the family know. Obviously, things have been falling apart. And right now, you're not feeling scared about that move, are you, Mark?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about the move, as you can imagine. I was scared at the time because, the last time we did a show and you were telling everybody you're out of crypto, and I'm like, I was stunned in the show. I literally was sitting there going, oh my gosh, I can't believe you've said that. We're about to come into it gets really bullish now. I saw the same things that you saw. I saw it was getting a little bit toppy, but I felt there would be a bit of a correction in January like normal, and then we would take off. That's what I thought would happen. And that's what I had planned for. So I took all my profits at the top and I told everybody I'm taking profits here. There's a good place to take profits. I'm looking to buy the dip. You were like out. And me and you have had conversations before. I said, Josh, that was a bold move and you were right. And I kind of felt inside that I could have done it, but I was a little bit scared about just being totally out and then it just taking off. And then I saw those signs, that song, I saw the sign, opened up my eyes, I saw the sign. And I just, I called, I posted in your Discord there. For those who don't know, I've got Crown Traders channel in the Stocks with Josh Discord. I have my own Discord. I posted in both, and I let everybody know I was out. I did a YouTube channel on it the very next day. So on the 30th of May, I shared, I'm out, and both Discords on YouTube. I shared with everybody on the 31st of May. People can go and watch that YouTube show that I was out. And man, I got a few comments that came in calling me crazy, and altcoin season was about to start and I just wasn't seeing it, and that I was going to have to end up buying back a whole lot higher. But as it's turned out, look what's happened here.
I love this show on YouTube because in my opinion, we're unique. And what I do and what the people that surround me in the community do is we don't care about all these people and everything they're saying. I'm trying to make money and I'm making decisions about my own money. I'm not going to damn my money, my own money, right? And I'm telling you guys what I'm doing. Now, I've been consistently profitable, right? So I bought the dip in the winter. I called out the bottom and I knew when it was time for me to lock in profits because actually we were way above my highest target. We had hit all my goals and then some. Now, since then, I've been swing trading. The last time I gave an alert, I took some positions. We rocketed higher, made some nice money, took profits on that, and everything's been coming down. Now, I know it's hard to follow people who are on YouTube, and you should do your own due diligence. But there's a reason why Mark is in the community. I think he's strong. And if you had the courage to not believe all the hype and really all the other people out there. I'm not saying that, Mark and I are the only ones to listen to, but I can tell you that Mark is consistently profitable. I vetted Mark before I ever brought him onto my show, and I saw that he was disciplined. He made money consistently, and that, but it's a journey, Mark, isn't it, Mark? It's a journey to be able to share that with people and get all the hate and the, the pain and the.
It was tough because I thought, what if I'm wrong here?
Absolutely. I feel the
Everybody's
same
telling
way.
me like you put it all on the line, but all I was doing was sharing what I was doing, and I didn't share that I wouldn't trade it. And I've been trading crypto, going short and long, especially short lately, with leverage. And I'm trading in and out, but I do believe that it is a trader's paradise and investor's hell. The crypto market has been like that since December, January, and I'm not sure I see it changing anytime soon. I think we're, 400 and something days into where the last halving, and usually there's only the bull run only lasts 500 and so days. So at the most, we've probably got, based on previous cycles, maybe a few months. One of the cycles did end a bit earlier, around about this time, so that's a bit scary. But the other ones have generally would end, if this one followed the last two cycles, would end somewhere around about October, November time, maybe September. So, but also something I've noticed, Josh, as well, is that Bitcoin is behaving quite differently to altcoins as well. And even though I sold, and look, this was the big, people said, did you even sell your Bitcoin? Yes, I even sold my Bitcoin. I just pulled the trigger because I just felt I can buy it back lower. And I think the signals for me were very clear. They were consistent with how I've traded over the years. And I think you were the one that really pushed me to say, because here's the deal, I don't want a round trip. We saw Bitcoin go from, this is what really hit me when you shared this with me, is we saw Bitcoin go from 109 all the way down to 74. And I just thought, why did I round trip that? I knew it was kind of dumb.
Yep.
I felt Josh was the one that had the boldness to share and pull the trigger on it. You were the one. And then I thought, well, why can't I just sell and then buy back at 74? And so that's the whole mentality behind it there. And so even though, I sold on the 30th of May, around the 30th of May, and then, I've traded since. There was a bullish period where it popped up for a little bit and I got in a few trades there, and then it obviously started to come back down. So I got out again, but I'm not really holding any trades for any long period of time. Really, I'm probably holding trades no more than maybe a week. And obviously, if the market shifts, maybe we get some peace in the Middle East. Please, God, can we have some peace in the Middle East? And we get some rate cuts, of course. And I don't know if rate cuts are going to come if the price of oil starts to skyrocket. And I've identified a trend on the weekly time frame for oil that hasn't been broken since 2022, and that the price per barrel is $76. And so we don't want to go above that and have multiple weekly closes above 76, or we could see inflation go and the rate cuts could go the other way. And then, of course, we had the tariffs on July 9th. With all the war stuff going on, right? I think everybody's forgotten about the tariffs. So did I, actually. And then I'm like, someone reminded me, oh, hey, and on July 9th, the tariff pause is off. And so you put all that together, and I think the one hope that I had, because when I look at the altcoin chart, if we were to compare the altcoin chart from today and compare it to the 2021 bull run and the top of the bull run there in November, and I can bring up my chart if you like, Josh. If you've got,
You know what? When
but
I go to
even if you
share
bring up
my,
the,
hold on that. Just continue that thought. I want to jump in with something, but wrap up that thought, and then I'll work with you to pull
yes,
your chart
yeah.
up.
So if you look on the monthly time frame, I can't bring up my chart. You'll be able to bring up total 2 on yours. And if we look on the monthly time frame, the structures are practically identical. And the next thing that happened in 2021 for altcoins was capitulation. However, for Bitcoin is looking a lot more bullish. So historically, if we were to base, if history repeats, the altcoin bull run would be over. And I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong. And the Bitcoin bull run would not. And it's very interesting. We've also lost the MACD on the monthly on altcoins, but not on Bitcoin. That has always signaled the end for the bull cycle for Bitcoin and for altcoins. So altcoins gone, the momentum indicators are done. And on Bitcoin, they're still going and still alive at the moment. So, but I do think the one hope that I do cling to is that historically June is very bearish. If you look at last June 2021, it was a dog's breakfast. It was terrible. It was awful to be in there. Everybody was saying it's over. The bear market is here. Dump all your bags, sell everything, get out, and so on. But then July came, and July at the beginning was very, very much also, is it just going to keep going down? And then all of a sudden it began to move in July. And at some point in July, it took off, and we had a nice bullish August into September, a bit of a pullback, and then we had a big push in October and November. So that's the kind of one hope. And also that this war in the Middle East could be a bit of a black swan event. So I'm certainly prepared to get back in the market if I see. And look, what is your number one rule of trading? I've watched you 100 times, your shows. Trade the trend, because the trend is your friend until the end, and then you start a new trend. And so people ask me, where are you going to buy back? When I see a trend shift, because right now it's a dip that keeps dipping, and I don't want to buy a falling knife. So I'm looking for a trend reversal, whatever the price that comes at. When I see that trend reversal, then I will look at getting back into the markets and loading up. Hopefully we'll have at least one more nice altcoin push. And I feel like a lot of people, honestly, from people that I've talked to, and this was me in the last cycle, I feel, when these dips came, they don't want an altcoin season to make profits. They just want to have an altcoin season to get back to break even, right? Yeah. They just want to get out. And that's the thing that I fear, that any pump might really just be more of a dead cat bounce or a relief rally to enable people to get out at a higher position. But it'll be interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But that's the one hope that I'm holding on for some kind of an altcoin season, is that June generally historically is very bearish and very down for crypto. And that July historically and August have been tended to be quite bullish. And we have got those bullish catalysts. Like, I do feel that if there was peace in the Middle East tomorrow and it was all resolved, the market would pop. I'd feel the same way with the tariff situation as well, and with rate cuts. And those are the three big things on the table that I think this market needs.
So there's a lot to unpack there. I appreciate everything you shared. Mark, you did a great job with that overview. But let's talk about, just take a brief moment and talk about this war. Now, like anybody, I'm very tempted to share my opinion of the war. I'm going to spare all of you because I know that there's a lot of people on both sides. I'll keep it simple and say that obviously, well, I'm not for war. I don't like war, but I'll just let you know that. I'm not for war. I'm not a big war guy, and I don't get pumped up when we start crushing and dropping bombs. I'll leave it just at that. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying that there isn't a need for these types of things. I'm just saying that a lot of these things are rooted in politics and bureaucracies and governments, which I find are a tangled web. I also find it fascinating, and I'm going to get off this really quickly. I also find it fascinating that Goldman Sachs, as well as a couple of the other big investment firms, warned their clients that 2025 was going to have global conflict. How did they know that in January? How did the richest people in the world know that there was going to be a spike in global conflict before this horrible war came out of nowhere? Forgive the sarcasm, because these things didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't, right? All right, put that aside. Here's the good news, folks. The fact is that normally it takes about a month, okay? When war or military conflict in the Middle East occur, it normally takes about a month. What you'll see is a fast 6%. It's not a 2% correction, and it's not a 10% pullback. It's typically around 6%, right? And literally for however long it takes for the market to pull back 6%, normally as we move towards war and when we move towards that spending and all the other things that it brings about, it takes half the time to recover. So I can't give you the exact amount of time it'll take for the markets to pull back. I can tell you that typically they pull back around 6% on a conflict like this. And if it took 4 weeks for it to pull back 6%, it typically takes 2 weeks once we get the reversal to get right back to the top. Now, in my last video, I said 2 things. One, that we were due for some sort of a pullback, likely to around 580 to 590. And I was basically saying that we would probably pull back to the 20 EMA on the, I think it was the weekly chart, right? That would be very healthy. And then we would continue higher from there. And what's going to happen is we're going to get that pullback way quicker than we thought. And then I think going into the July and August, and I'm just going to pause there for a minute. The July, August is all going to be about the trade wars getting wrapped up. And I think it's do or die. And most of the time in life, there's an old saying that something gets done in the amount of time that's been allocated for it to be completed, which means that if you spend 6 hours to do a job, if you plan a job for 6 hours, you'll get it done in 6 hours. But if you have to, and you get that, if you need to get that job done in 2 hours, people can find a way of getting it done. Well, Trump is up against the clock. He gave himself 90 days on these deals to get worked out. We got July 9th is the EU deal, and then August is the China deal. If you ask my opinion, and maybe I'm being naive, I think those deals will find some resolution because I think Trump's run out of time. So even if he has to concede, even if he has to walk things back, I personally think that something will get done with, and the belief is the tariff war will be behind us. I think that because of the war and all of the potential supply disruption and all the things that will be on the table, I think that this could be the motivation that the Fed needs to be a little bit more dovish, especially if inflation stays relatively under control and we have the tariff wars come into some form of resolution. I think the only thing holding the Fed back from cutting rates right now is the tariffs war. So if this all gets wrapped up in 30 days, I really think that we're going to find our bottom sometime here in July, and we're going to begin to rally and pump into August. And I think that we could continue to go up all the way into November. And I think that at that point, we're going to find a brand new market high. I'm thinking between 620 and 640. And I think we're going to get a Bitcoin high. And my number for that's begun to go up. Now, if you recall, the last time I gave a prediction, I said when we were down at 74 and we began to come back up, I said, I went on Larry's page when he had to take a step away and help his dad or deal with some things in help his dad's health issues. I made a prediction on that show as well as my own. I said we're going to get up to around 114 to 116 on this push. Now we hit 112. We stopped about 2K shy of it, right? And we've since pulled back. Now in my last show, I said just this last show I did before this one, I said that we would have a pullback to 98,000 here real soon, which we're sitting at right now. Now, I've become more bullish, and I'm not saying I'm right, but let's just imagine that I'm right for a moment. I've become more bullish that based on the macro environment of getting a dovish Fed, war resolved, interest rates cut, tariff war resolved, I can see a Fed and I can see all this coming together in August for a blow-off top move. Right? Not a move sideways through summer and descend back to the bottom, a sideways and pull back in June and July, then a strong rally on these things getting worked out between July and August, pushing us all the way back above 600, 620, 630. And then from there, I think in November, we fade the month of December after peaking in November. That's largely what I see. And if all you take away from this video, and this is one of the main reasons why I came on to do a show today. One, I think it's really interesting that Mark sold his bag. Two, I believe that this is going to be an incredible buying opportunity across the board. Magnificent Seven. Now, the last time I did a video where I came out and said, guys, buy. Now, after I did that video, we dipped for about one more week. But then it rocketed ever since. Okay. Now, I can't give you the exact timing. I can tell you that normally I could tell you that you could go buy a 6% pullback. You could go buy it all ought to be wrapped up within 30 days. But between a 6% pullback or 30 days, whichever comes sooner, I personally think this could be the very best buying opportunity left in 2025 before this thing goes nuts higher. Now, I guess I've gotten bullish, right? And I'm getting bullish in the face, not to buy tomorrow, but I'm getting bullish for this year, making brand new highs. Mark, react to what I've said here. Maybe you can even feel free to disagree with me. What do you like and what do you dislike about what I presented?
No, I like what you said. I mean, I could see Bitcoin still making a new all-time high. And I just do want to clarify someone, because someone was like, jaws dropped open on the chat there. I'm reading the comments. And just to clarify, my average sell price on Bitcoin was about 108,000. I sold a bunch at 110 and the rest at 105. So I got out about 108. What is it sitting at? 98,000. Okay. So, oh no, I don't have my Bitcoin. Well, guess what? I could right now go and buy it all back $10,000 less than what I sold it. So I'm not really concerned. I would rather buy it, much like yourself, Josh, buy a little bit higher on confirmation. I want to see a trend shift and a trend reversal. So I'm looking for the trend to change. And when I see that trend change, then I can buy back that Bitcoin lower than what I sold it for. And that's what I'm about. I'm not married to Bitcoin. I didn't go down the aisle and say, I do. I'm just trading it. I love it as an asset. Yes, I think it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, why not sell it high and buy it back lower? And that's the same with the altcoins as well. I do agree with you for stocks. Historically, you're right. The wars have been historically good times to buy the dip, and we do expect Monday to drop. Obviously, something could happen overnight. We just one eye on the charts, Josh, and one eye on the news, right? To see what news could break that could possibly shift the momentum or shift the trend. But I am expecting the markets to open red. I think the futures trading tonight is likely to be red as well, and overnight trading. And then I think there will be an opportunity there. And I do agree with you. This could be the last kind of opportunity you get to buy whatever dip that comes. And I think the key will be just to assess, nobody wants to buy a dip that keeps dipping either. We've just seen that with crypto. You don't want to buy a dip and then it dips and then you're buying the dip. So just being able to time the right kind of technicals to say, yeah, okay, I think we found a little bit of support here and maybe a bit of a reversal, and we can get it to the upside there. So yeah, I do think that. And historically, you are correct that generally July is generally a very bullish time. And that's why they say, sell in May and go away, and June gloom, and then July you fly. And then there's Rectember coming up as well. Might be a little bit more of a dip then. And then usually October and November are fairly bullish. Agreed with that. So I would say that, and that's what I'm prepared for. And I'm there with dry powder ready. And look, it makes me really happy when people send me messages that they're looking at their portfolio and they followed what I did because I shared that. And they're not watching their portfolio drop. They're not down 30, 40, 50%.
Mark,
they're down 0%. They're in cash like I am.
Well, on that point, I want to just answer a couple questions here. And I don't ever answer negative questions to shame anybody, but to help you. Patrick said, how can y'all be laughing and smiling when people are losing tons of money? I'm just going to, and then John Caros, and this is not, I'm not really meaning to call anybody out. He's like, I agree. Guys, and I just want you to hear me. Okay, the smiling and the laughing come from the decisions that were made to protect capital. It's called joy. We're happy that we're not suffering the bad news of today or the loss. And we didn't keep it to ourselves. Mark did a great job letting everybody know on the Stocks with Josh Discord, I'm cashing out. So this wasn't hidden information. And so now every dollar and every $1,000 that Bitcoin drops, we're just going to be getting more and more giddy. Now, am I happy that you're losing money? No. Am I happy that you're not in my Discord and you didn't take seriously the wisdom that I'm bringing to the table, myself and my Crown Traders? No, I'm not happy about that either. On that point, guys, if you want to join the Stocks with Josh Discord, it's the name of the show, but you simply go to the your URL website, type in www.stockswithjosh.com, and I wouldn't ignore the things that Mark puts in there, because he's got his thumb on the pulse of these markets. And if you see me say that I've sold everything, or you see Mark say that he sold everything, then you need to be considering a stop loss, my friend. Now, we're not meant to be your guides. We're simply here sharing with you what we've done. But I'll tell you this, I'm consistently profitable, right? And I've been getting, and I don't want to say it, I'm doing well, and my monies are growing, right? And I don't always catch the top, and I don't always catch the bottom, but because of the years that I've been doing this, I'm making pretty good decisions, and I don't get slaughtered, right? And because I use disciplines, which is actually the hardest thing, to use the disciplines. I agree with Mark when he says trade the trend, and everyone knows that's my first discipline. Trade the trend. Second is use a stop loss. The trend right now is down. So let's just pause there and let me know. I'm going to let you guys I'm going to take you into the chart, and I'm going to let you see the absolute minimum pullback we're going to get. Okay, we're talking the absolute minimum pullback we're going to get.
And before you bring up the chart, Joe, I'll just add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
As well, that as far as when Josh sold all his crypto, November, December, whatever, and I didn't, I just took profits. I was on Josh's show and I was still smiling. I'm not smiling whether people are making money or losing money, or I'm making money or losing money. Just smiling because, you just always have to have a positive outlook no matter what. Regardless of the circumstances, I just try and find the silver lining and a solution and to learn. And I learned from the last time that Josh was on here and he had sold and I was sitting there and I hadn't. At least I took profit. But at the same time, I was looking to learn and say, I'm not going to make that mistake next time. So next time I can be sitting here with Josh saying, hey, yeah, I sold, but I feel good too that I
and you did, and you are, and I love it.
Yeah, and I feel good that me sharing where I got out of those trades helped other people. I've been getting a ton of messages from people saying, oh my gosh, I would be down 30, 40, 50% had I not sold when you did. And then Josh, you also make another comment, even if you didn't catch the video or you're not in the Discord and you didn't catch where I sold, everybody should have stop losses anyway. I don't think anybody should be down 30, 40, 50% on their bags. There should be a stop loss strategy there. So, it's just finding a way to be positive and to learn and to grow and to be better. And so,
on that point, I love some of the points you're making today, Mark. They're all great points. I just want to share something I don't think I've shared before. I don't coach people because I don't have the time to do that. But I'll tell you that I do coach some family members. We're talking about my children and one or two close friends. And I have a simple rule. When I'm talking to them about trades, if they don't use a stop loss, when I talk to them about an opportunity and I catch them not using the stop loss, I'm done with them. They're dead to me. Now, I'm being the truth. My son didn't use a stop loss on a trade and it really hurt him. And I backed off for like 6 months and I didn't give him no picks. I didn't tell him what I was doing. And so I'm letting you know, everybody, I don't care who you are, my own beloved son, if you want that one-on-one communication with me, if you're not using a stop loss, I can't mess with you. I never shared that before with you guys, and I thought you might find it interesting. Those who get the closest to me, if they're not stop loss people, I can't help them because I get in and out of trades and I don't stay married to anything. Let's talk real quick about Bitcoin. Let me take you into that chart real quick. Okay, guys, I just wanted you to see this, right? So in my last show, I talked about the fact that at bare minimum, we'd come back to 98. Well, that's done. But I want to just point out, this is the monthly chart, and that's the 5 EMA. Now, whenever you're looking at the monthly chart, you want to look at the 5 EMA because that's where it largely should be respecting trend. If it's above the 5 EMA, it should bounce and it should continue higher. So what does that mean when we're looking at this chart? It means that if we pulled back, which we have, this isn't a tweezer top, but it's not looking good. This is almost a tweezer top. If the top of this hit 112, it would be. It doesn't have to be, but this is not a bearish setup right now. At bare minimum, I'm talking at bare minimum, Bitcoin has to come back to 95,390 just to come back and hit the 5, and that would be bullish when it's above when it's above and it's going month to month. As it stays above, right? You never close 2 monthly candles in a row, so you can see that it's not done that. Every time it crossed below, the next candle was green. It wasn't another red candle. So this trend has all been bullish, right? And so I want you to just understand, the minute we reversed off the top and we've come down, the likelihood that we would at bare minimum hit 95,000 and some change is pretty high. Now, I just want to give you guys these things, okay? You see this red bar I drew there? I had that red bar drew there months ago. So this is where I understood support to be. I predicted back then that we would come down to it. Now, my max pain scenario is right here around 90K. Right now, I'm not predicting it down to 90K. I'm just telling you that's sort of my max pain for the current pullback. If we end up opening a candle underneath 90, I'm going to call it and say that the top was 112 and the whole thing is over. I think that if we bounce and we have a hard pullback because of the war, we'll go as low as this 90K range. I think after that, we'd quickly recover 98. But this is sort of the pain area. From 98 to a minimum of 95 and as possibly low as 90. This is where we have to bounce. We have to bounce hard between 90 and 92 for me to believe that we're going to continue to make a higher high in 2025. So this is what I'm going to be watching. I think what the market will react to 95,000. I think the market will react there. But if we end up losing that quickly, then I think that I'll be a more interested buyer a little bit lower here between 90 and 92. And I would say that 95 is a minimum bounce. 90 is a max pain bounce. Mark, why don't you react to that? What are your numbers? Where are you becoming? I know what you said. Maverick, let me answer for you, and then you answer for you. Mark said he'll be an interested buyer when the new green bullish trend is reestablished. That's what he said. He said, Josh, I'll come back in with my hard-earned cash that I have to grow because I am a married man who takes care of young children. I'll bring that back into a risk scenario when I begin to see consistent green candles and a push higher making a higher high. Now, if you get tempted, Mark, to buy the dip, I'm not saying that you will. You might just stick to your I'm buying green candles. But if you get tempted to buy the dip, where would you be tempted?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's a couple of areas that we could see a reversal that I'll be looking. If it holds the support, are we going to see a trend reversal? The first one both on the 12-hour and on the daily charts identified head and shoulders patterns. In fact, they kind of share a shoulder on a couple there, but there's a head and shoulders pattern. And the technical target to the downside is 97K on one of them and is 95,000 on the other one, which just happens to be where the 200-day moving average is. Now, right now, Bitcoin is on a trend line support from when it started dropping from the 22nd of May, which is right near the 100 EMA. So we could find a stop and reversal here. This is one option at around 99,000. We're right on top of the 100 EMA on the daily, or coming potentially down to that first head and shoulders on the 12-hour time frame at 97,700, and the second head and shoulders pattern from the daily time frame, that's down at 95,700, which is where the 200-day moving average is. I think if we started to drop below that, then I would start to feel that it could be over. And of course, it's always been over when I would be looking at the monthly MACD on the monthly time frame, of course. When the blue line crosses below the red, that's usually signaled the end. And then, of course, on the weekly time frame, when Bitcoin has lost the 50-week moving average at 84,000, then that's usually been the end there. But I would agree with you. I would be almost prepared to call it much sooner than that if we started to lose those other key levels. And I think an area that I would be looking for from the upside, is the 9 EMA, and that's sitting at about 103,000, but it moves quite quickly to the downside. And the 9 EMA, when that crosses below the 20 EMA, it's historically been very bearish for Bitcoin.
On what time frame are you looking at the 9 and
on the daily time frame? So I've switched from the weekly. I went from the monthly there on the MACD to the weekly with the 50-week moving average to the daily time frame, where the 9 crosses below the 20 EMA. Now, the last time that happened, Bitcoin dropped pretty heavily from, where was the date that it happened? Dropped pretty heavily from about 100,000 all the way down to 74. And then when it reclaimed it and the 9 pushed back above the 20, Bitcoin went up from about 83,000 all the way up to 112,000 or whatever it hit. So that 9 and 20 EMA cross, either to the upside or the downside, does usually coincide with a shift in momentum. So if I was to see that happen and we were to get some kind of a rally to the upside, and you can have a look, you've got it on your chart there, Josh, you can show people there what happens when the 9 goes below the 20. You see a lot of downside, and you see when it flips back up, you see a lot of upside. And you can see right there on the right-hand side of your chart how it has just dropped to the downside, and you can see what happened right after the 9 crossed below the 20. What happened? Boom. Down it went just like every other time. And so I'll be looking for Bitcoin. What must Bitcoin reclaim? It's got to reclaim the 9. If it gets above the 9 will begin to curl up and then can move. And as long as it stays above the 9, it will curl up and cross back above the 20 EMA. That's an area that I would look to get back into Bitcoin there. And of course, like you can see on the chart, it's a moving average. So that price is 103 and 103,700 right now. However, when it does eventually cross back up to the upside, we don't know what that price will be. So those are the key things that I'm looking at the moment there, with
Mark,
Bitcoin, with head and shoulders playing out, and we got the 9 below the 20.
Yeah, let me just quickly recap for people. So the red line here is the 9, and the orange line here is the 20. The 9 has crossed beneath the 20. We've got a nice little flush going on. I have been predicting in this show that we have to come down to at least 95K as a minimum. All right, so that's the minimum down move that we should see. And I'll let you guys know that if you're in pain, I want you to know that the likelihood is there's another 10% that's going to have to be borne out. There's going to be another, not 10% move, but a little bit more pain that has to be processed. So the best, most bullish scenario is that we come down to 95 and bounce, right? I wanted to take you guys back to the 2021 top because it did it 2 times. And right here, we had the 9 cross beneath the 20, and that produced this pull down. We turned back up, right? We came back again, turned back up, made that brand new all-time high. And then after that, it was the last time that it would cross above the 20 until the winter was over. But let's go back and look at the current moment. Right now, we've only had the 9 cross beneath the 21 time, whereas in 2021, we had it do it 2 times before we made the top. So we've got the 1. Now we've got this second one that hasn't reversed yet. But if we mirror 2021, and I don't think we have to, but we're just talking charts here, and we do cross back up one more time, this would give us that higher high potential, which I've been talking about, that we never hit. It would, 114, 116, or much higher, depending on how, animal spirits turn on if the market begins to rally. But we would for sure make a higher high than we've got right here. And so that's kind of the possible move. And this wasn't 2021. I apologize. This was the previous peak. So this was how the previous peak worked out. This was actually 2024 right here. I apologize. But I do expect that we will get that second cross up before we begin to break down. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for as well. That we do see that Bitcoin does tend to front run the stock market a little bit. By the way, it
Absolutely.
dumped down. It dumped first before the stock market dumped, and then it popped, and the stock market popped, and now it's dropping again. And we're likely to see the stock market drop on Monday. So it has been moving quite closely with stocks, but just front running a little bit, and it has been a little bit disconnected from altcoins. My biggest concern is the altcoin market, because Total 2 does not look good, Josh, and does not look as healthy as Bitcoin there. I'd love to know your thoughts about the decoupling, because in its history, while altcoins have been there and Bitcoin, the altcoin and Bitcoin charts have always moved together. And then this cycle with the ETF, for the first time ever, Bitcoin decoupled itself from the altcoin market and has been decoupled from it. Now, of course, when Bitcoin does move up, altcoins tend to move up as well. But there has the whenever Bitcoin drops, Bitcoin tends to drop a little bit and altcoins drop a lot. And then Bitcoin pumps up a little bit and altcoins just aren't pumping up very much, and the gap is getting wider and wider there.
All right, I want to address a couple things. This comment, Tony says, bizarre. I could have swore these dudes were bullish. Now they're saying they sold their bags. Guys, when Mark told you that he sold his bags, it wasn't easy to do. Mark, what was the exact date for that?
May 30th.
May 30th, right? So here we are, June 22nd, okay? He made a decision. He let you guys know. If he didn't turn around and announce that he had repurchased everything, then how can you say that you could have swore these dudes were bullish, okay? Now, if you're referring to me, in my last video, I articulated an entire year view. And the view was that we had to come back and test the 20 on the S&P 500. And I said in that video that would bring the Bitcoin back to at least 98, right? Now, I didn't know that the US was going to accelerate the war and get involved, but I was telling you that the charts were looking like they had a pullback coming. And my exact message, though, that was new and bullish for that video is that I don't believe that the pullback is a apocalyptic move and a return to the lows. I believe the pullback that we're having now, that we're going to see this week, is going to set up for a massive buying opportunity and for an opportunity to get positioned. Maybe people will be holding their bags and they'll just ride down and have to ride back up. But even that is valuable information, because if you panic when we ride down because you didn't have a stop loss, and you sell at the bottom because you think it's going lower because all the pundits and other YouTubers are telling you something different than I'm telling you, you panic sell at the bottom. That's what most retail traders are do. I'm telling you now, of course, it's a wildly bold move of me to come onto YouTube and tell you that you shouldn't panic. Because trust me, on CNBC tomorrow, they're going to make it sound like the sky is falling, China's getting into the war, that everything's accelerating, Russia's going to get involved, there's going to be multiple conflicts around the world. But it's not going to go that way. It's probably going to get resolved very quickly. Most global powers do not attack each other without communication in advance. And to be honest with you, they work out the terms, right? I can't say for sure, but it's my opinion that Donald Trump has already communicated with Saudi Arabia and other Middle East powers. He's got a $4 trillion deal going with them. You think that he didn't call them and say, okay, hey guys, what do you think about this? It got worked out. That could be wildly controversial to some people, but trust me, there's a limited conflict. Regime change probably has already been decided. Whoever's going to take over might have already been picked. Now, those are just my political views. Maybe they're over the top. What I'm telling you is that when we dip here, and how much are we going to dip? I already told you, traditionally around 6% from the top, 6%. And however long it takes us to make that dip, it'll take half the time to get back up. And if we have that dip and you're not prepared for it, and you get down to the bottom and everyone else is telling you to panic, and then you sell at the bottom, you'll have fallen into a trap that a lot of retail traders fall into. I cannot give you financial advice. What I'm telling you is that if we pull down 6% from the top on the S&P and we pull down on crypto right around that 92 to 95K, I'm putting tons of money to work, and I'm going to be going long for a payday that's, I believe, will happen between August and November. I don't see that things won't get worked out, that the war won't pass, that Trump won't make deals. I think it'll all come together. We'll get some dovishness from the Fed, because I think war warrants some dovish push into the market, because he has a real reason to hedge his hawkishness at this point. He's got a real reason, because war could bring the markets down. It could impact the economy, and he is tasked to make sure that that doesn't happen. So war is a new factor that he has to take into consideration, and I think the lean of war is for him to be more dovish. So between June and July, we should begin to head back up, but expect some pain right now. And this is really the exact same thing I said in my last video. We just have new information today about what's going to be the trigger. And I want to throw out one last comment, and then I will let Mark say his final thoughts, and we'll say goodbye here. People always say, which comes first, the catalyst or the charts? The charts, and I'm just going to, this is really a not important topic, but I just want to say, in my opinion, the charts have been pointing to this. The charts have been foreshadowing this. Technically, I already told you guys just in yesterday's video, before the catalyst of the war came out, that the charts were suggesting that it was time for a pullback. Then the catalyst comes, and then the market does what the charts were already alluding to, a pullback. In my opinion, I think it'll be relatively minor. It depends on how you view what is 6%. In my opinion, 2% would be light, 6% is reasonable in a war situation. That's not a huge pullback. It's a buying opportunity. Final thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you buy the dips, as long as you're not buying the dip that keeps dipping forever. I'm very much trading the trend, especially with the crypto market. Historically, we're near the end. I think it gets more risky. My approach that I take at the beginning of the bull run is very different to the approach that I take now. I'm very much trading in and out and not looking to hold anything long term, because there probably isn't going to be a long term with crypto. We do see altcoins lose 90% of their value and go into a bear market for about a year. And you don't want to be holding through that. You want to be smart. You want to use stop losses. You want to trade the trend, and you want to make sure you don't revenge trade. And you want to make good decisions. And when the market is bullish, you buy and you take profits on the way up. And when the market is bearish, why do you want to round trip all the way back down again? You want to get out of the market, and you want to take your profits, or you want to have stop losses so that you have capital to be able to deploy when and I don't try and pick the bottom, okay? I don't. I look to identify at or around the bottom, because I think those people who try and pick bottoms get smelly fingers. And I don't try and pick bottoms. I'm not waiting for some magical number. I'm really just looking to wait for a trend shift, and that it moves from bearish to bullish, and then I deploy capital and ride that to the top. And then again, I don't look to sell the top. I didn't time the exact top at Bitcoin, Josh. I didn't sell right on the button at 112. I sold a bunch at 110 and the rest at 105 for an average of about 108. But I got pretty close to it. And that's what I'm good at. And that's what I like doing. That's what I teach other people to do as well, to get out at or around the top, and then to get in or around the bottom, just like at around 74. And I got some at 74, but I also bought a bunch at 78 and 82, Josh. That was probably my last buy as we moved back up again. And then I've done the same thing where I've sold a bunch at 110, sold a bunch at 105. Now we're down at 98. And I will look to 100% get back into the market when I see a trend shift and a bullish reversal pattern that I feel comfortable putting and deploying capital.
All right. I love that. I agree with you. And I love the discipline that you bring to the community. Think Positive said, Josh, do you think Ondo is going to explode? I think that, like everything, Ondo has to come back some more because this uncertainty with the war in the Middle East is going to cause everything to pull back. It's very hard for me to imagine. Normally, when these conflicts begin and the US gets in, and guess what, guys? We got in. We dropped bombs on Iran. That's a very serious thing. We got in. All right. So the US is in dropping bombs on the country of Iran. Okay. So it's going to bring uncertainty to the markets. It's going to bring uncertainty to the supply chain. And until this thing gets worked out, you have to expect things to pull back. Everything across the board. There's going to be outliers. Those are the ones we watch for. What is an outlier? It's something that's not going down when everything else is going down. That tells you when the market turns around, that's the one you got to watch because it's going to rip way higher than anything else.
Yeah.
But I do believe at this moment in time, in this dark hour, I still believe in a higher high on Bitcoin. And I won't say a higher high on the alts. I haven't determined that yet. I've been really trying to answer that for myself, but I believe that we will see higher highs, local highs for the alts. I believe that Ondo, between 64 and 54, I think that's where max pain is, roughly for me. I will be nibbling on these when I see wicks. I don't see wicks. Wicks express the emotion of the market. Let me repeat that, and I want you guys to think about it for a minute. Wicks express the emotion of the market. And so when you finally see right now on Ondo, for example, and I've got the chart visually memorized, candle doesn't have a huge wick on the bottom. That means it's not done selling. The market's not gotten emotional enough. It's just basically a large bodied candle. When you get one that's got a huge tail on it and the bears panic, the bulls panic and they sell their bags, and then the bulls sweep in to buy it back up and you see a wick, that's when the pain will largely be coming to an end. That doesn't mean that the bottom's been found. It means that the expression of the fear, max fear, will have been made. We'll see it in the wicks. We don't see it in the wicks yet. I will be looking for those opportunities to buy, and I don't think it's a 10, 15, or 20% correction. I think it's a 6. I'm going to go with 6%, right? And that's when I'm going to be looking across the board, the Magnificent Seven, to begin to buy them all, just like I did the last time we had the storm in the market. I bought every last one of them. Microsoft, Meta were the ones that paid the best. And, if they paid well before, they might pay the best again. So I'm going to give a little extra attention to the ones that did better in the last round. To me, this is setting up for a buying opportunity. And personally, I believe the politicians, the global powers, and the market makers, they knew it in January. How it would play out, what month it would play out, maybe they didn't know. But these things have been in the background getting worked on for a long time. And so now we're going through it. It's going to give us a buying opportunity. And I think we can make a ton of money, a killing. Maybe that's not the right word to use in this context of this conversation. We're going to do well financially by buying the dip for 2025. And I would say that we're going to be watching that 6% because that's the across the board average for military conflicts. And they all lead to a higher high. Every last one of them.
Yes.
All right, I want to go through. I'm going to just answer a couple questions because I've got 5 more minutes left to give you guys.
While you're looking, Josh, there is a head and shoulders pattern on Ondo, just looking at the charts. If that plays out, that's going to come into the 50s.
Yeah.
And it is playing out at the moment. So there's a giant head and shoulders on Ondo there. So just be careful if you're trading Ondo. And these targets don't always get down to exactly, the technical targets to the bottom, but it's extremely bearish at the moment. If we lost that 60-cent region there, which seems, then it could well come down to the 50s. 50 cent, I think, is the target there that we could come down to.
Yeah, I'm just going through a lot of these comments, a lot of emotions, guys, in the comments. Dub factor, this is just is that big, beautiful deals or big, beautiful bombs? It's an interesting comment. Lion and lamb depends on the weed. Join the Discord, guys, to get I can tell you right now, I would recommend joining the Discord, because when I tell you guys that I've gotten back into all of the Magnificent Seven with skip options 3 to 6 months out. The last time I did that, we had 1,000% win on Microsoft and 400 to 600% on another 4 of the Magnificent Seven. A couple of them were only 100%, but we bought them across the board and it paid off really well. I will announce that as soon as I see us hit the numbers that make sense. I will announce it. Maybe I won't get in perfectly. Maybe I'll be a little early. Maybe I'll be a little late, but I will announce it, and it will be another big opportunity. And it could be the last best opportunity for 2025. I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for hitting the like. Thank you for hitting subscribe to get the next video. Appreciate all of you guys. I've been traveling. I'm going to be doing live trading in the Stocks with Josh Discord tomorrow morning. But later in the day around 12 noon, I got to catch a flight. So we're going to kick the morning off and make some money. But appreciate you guys joining me. Thank you, Mark, for all the nuggets of wisdom and the disciplines that you bring to the community. Guys, you can go to Mark's page, Tribal Trades, and you can subscribe to him and get more content daily. You can join the Stocks with Josh Discord and get his plays as well as mine. Appreciate all of you. Peace and blessings. Take care.